this section of Godzilla Raids Again, our review. Many people have, let us know that we're completely off base. That Godzilla Raids Again is not the worst movie ever made, or worst Godzilla movie ever made, rather. No, that title is taken by this next movie, known in America as Godzilla's Revenge. A Godzilla-obsessed youth conjures Minya and monstrous adventures because he has no friends and daddy's always working. The big question, is this the worst Godzilla movie ever made?
No. Don't get me wrong, I did not like it. I thought it was pretty bad, but it's not the worst I've seen.
When we were going into watching this, I was so staunch on defending this movie because this is one of those movies that I grew up watching. I didn't grow up watching Son of Godzilla. I didn't grow up watching Sea Monster. So seeing all these fights, the Kamacuras fight, the Kumanga fight, the fight with the Condor,
the giant
the
Condor,
Jets,
obviously the best one.
Obviously, right? And Avera, like those were all, new and fresh. As a kid, I adored this movie. I liked the fact that Minya talks. Watching it again as, an almost 30-year-old, it's certainly not the best Godzilla movie ever made, but this movie has merit as a kid's movie. I would rather show this to my nephew, get him started off, than start with something like, Godzilla vs. Mothra, or even Invasion of the Astro Monster, which I consider the second best Godzilla movie we've seen so far.
You refer to this as like a best of compilation, right?
Yeah, I mean, after Destroy All Monsters came out, the cost-cutting measures at Toho basically dictated that, hey, we're going to make this movie with stock footage, it's not going to cost a whole lot, let's talk about the story, let's talk about the actors, and then get onto the special effects. What did you think?
That kid can burn in hell. I think that kid was the worst part of this movie, to be honest. It wasn't the stock footage, it wasn't the talking Minya, it was that damn kid.
He's not nearly as bad as the kid that was singing the goddamn theme song.
Oh god, that was awful.
We were talking about this, about the use of stock footage, because Godzilla's Revenge, Godzilla vs. Gigan, this one especially, heavy use of stock footage. And a lot of people hate this movie because of the stock footage. My question is, in a non-VHS era, were people really that adamant about stock footage? Like, would they sit there and be like, oh my god, this movie sucks because of the Kamacuras fight, I remember seeing this from 2 years previous!
Little kids probably wouldn't even notice it,
I mean, the big thing is probably the fact that, you can see the different Godzilla suits. First it's the Son of Godzilla suit, then it's the Monster Zero Godzilla suit, then it's the 1967 Destroy All Monsters Godzilla suit.
I'll tell you this, I saw this as a kid. I didn't notice the suits, I didn't notice the stock footage, and I had seen at that point all those other movies. I just remember thinking like, oh, the damn spider's back,
What about the things and the creatures that we haven't seen?
You're talking about Gabra?
Well, we can talk about Gabra, or we can talk about talking Minya. I mean, those are two big things.
Where do we start?
But Gabra is definitely on you, because I want to quote this, okay? And I quote, when Brian first saw Gabra appear on screen and he did his little roar, Brian just kind of looked at it and said, "He sounds like he's choking on
Yeah. I think this may be my least favorite kaiju maybe in the whole franchise.
Now, I personally don't mind him so much. I would agree that, he probably is the worst monster. The role that he fills in this movie, it works, In general, I don't think this would be a very interesting monster.
Gabra does not appear ever again, not even in Final Wars, which leads to the question, is Gabra just a figment of this kid's imagination? Obviously, Godzilla is known to people, but in this movie, is it because he attacked Tokyo or because there is a Godzilla movie?
There doesn't seem to be a definitive answer.
No, it's kind of interesting, and that makes the movie a little bit more fascinating.
Yeah. So what about Minya?
Not as annoying as Gabra, but...
Can you do your impression, the American dub? Yeah.
Okay, really quick. The voices for the American dub and the Japanese dub are quite different. In the Japanese movie, Minya sounds like a kid, which works. In the American version, you have this Don Knotts voice of, Godzilla says that I should fight my own battles,
He's the friend of the kid in this, and I think it works in terms of what they're trying to do. As a child watching this, I loved it. I loved Minion as Don Knotts' impression.
Actually, as a kid, I did not care for it. I thought it was stupid back then. This may be the first time, by the way, we have a difference of opinion.
I look at this movie with definite, nostalgia-tinged glasses. And
Godzilla says, take off those f***ing glasses and get with the program,
I was expecting us to just rip into this movie. And I don't really know what more I can say other than, yes, it is one of the worst Godzilla movies. It's certainly not my favorite, but it's certainly not my least favorite by any stretch. The last thing I wanted to ask you, and we already kind of talked about this a little bit, but the 70s movies, all considered to be the worst of the worst of, Godzilla movies. Not just of the old series, but generally as a whole, when you're talking about them.
Yep.
But there are people, non-fans like, you. I got a buddy, Brent, who absolutely loves Smog Monster, who, swear by Megalon, who swear by Godzilla's Revenge. I was one of those kids too. These are some movies that were constantly being played because I love them. Does that give them more merit, or are they still just movies?
I can only go back to Godzilla vs. Mothra. That's one that I grew up watching a lot on TV. I used to have very fond memories watching that, and then when we sat down and watched for the review, I was not all that impressed. So clearly it was just the nostalgia glasses that I was wearing. And I think that might be the same case with these movies is, they played when we were kids on TV. We remember the couple cool scenes here and there, but overall the movies are
If anything, if there's anything positive to say about, these stretch of movies that we're talking about, is that, they probably are best for kids,
Absolutely.
The fact remains that these movies they play well to a much younger audience and probably make Godzilla much more accessible than, again, a movie like, Ghidorah or Astro Monster. Even though those are good movies, and kids could probably handle them.
Yeah, a little on the dry side, though.
Yeah, but not as much as some of these other ones.
Absolutely.
With that said, we continue our journey into the dark era of Godzilla with the next entry, which is it's pretty divisive. I don't think it's as hated as Godzilla's Revenge, but it definitely has its detractors. From the executive producer who brought you Godzilla 2014, we go and dive into Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. Guys, for Godzilla's sake, keep watching more tokusatsu for the good of mankind and yourselves. This is Matt.
Brian.
Sitting here reminding you to please, oh please, collect responsibly. And if you don't have any friends, if your parents are not coming home, it would probably be best to not conjure up a Don Knotts ogre-looking child thing. It just leads to bigger problems in life. Believe me, I tried. Later.